Garfield's Halloween Adventure, also known as Garfield in Disguise, is a 1985 animated kids special featuring everyone's favourite lazy lasagna-eating ginger feline who isn't called me. Whereas most of Garfield's specials or TV shows are in some way, shape or form based off the existing comics or other materials, this special has the distinct honour of being the first TV special to be based on an entirely original idea by the strip's original creator, Jim Davis. The Garfield formula at this point is a fairly well understood one. Garfield is a big ginger cat who enjoys sleeping, dry humour and food of all kinds. His schlubby dryness has been a much-loved staple of newspapers and TV since his creation, and he was, and still pretty much is, the poster child of every ginger Tom this side of the equator since the 80s. He's absolutely massive, with vast swathes of merchandise and a regular strip. Women love him, men want to be him, and children thought he was bloody hilarious. So a seasonal Halloween special really seemed like a no-brainer at this point. So, it's Halloween, and Garfield is rudely awoken by Binky the Clown, whose screeching startles our feline friend into a frenzy of jumping jacks. After some fumbling, he finally manages to kill the TV, but before he does, he overhears Binky mention something about free candy, and that's when he realises tonight's Halloween, a time where he can make a super sweet score, or as he puts it, candy, 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 candy. He needs a costume and a sack, and after that he should be good to go. So first he goes to see John for some breakfast, but once that's out of the way he begins to put in motion his plans. Odie initially gets in Garfield's way, but Garfield has a brilliant idea to let Odie tag along, as that'll mean double the candy for him if he can spin it right to Odie. So he tells him that Halloween is the time of year where dogs help cats get as much candy as possible, and in return all helpful dogs will get one single piece of candy all to themselves. Odie's overjoyed at the idea and agrees to help, and after rooting around in the attic for the perfect costume, they arrive on a couple of pirate outfits that perfectly fit the bill. From here on in, Orangebeard the pirate and his crew member, Odie the stupid, are the cutthroat buccaneers of the candy frontier. And so they head out into the night, and after a few initial scares from fellow trick-or-treaters, and the odd monster, they eventually manage to raid the town of all its sugary goodness. But when Garfield starts to get greedy and sets up a plan to cross a river by boat to get to a neighbouring town and get even more sweet goodness, things start to come unstuck. As the boat they borrow becomes unmanageable and the pair gets washed down the river into a spooky island, home to an abandoned-looking mansion. Though as Garfield and Odie nervously explore the grounds, they find it's far from being empty. And when an old man appears telling tales of vengeful pirates looking to regain their lost treasure from 100 years to the night that they first buried it, well, the resulting carnage, spooks and scares are more than enough to give the pair a night they won't soon forget. This special really pours on the charm, nailing Garfield's character and mannerisms straight off the bat. It's got some fabulous music numbers. Oh yeah, this thing has a handful of genuinely lovely musical pieces, but more on that later. Though it's even the small things, like how little animation choices here and there give the characters an entire spectrum of emotions to play with, that really warm me to this. Garfield never talks with his mouth, it's all an internal monologue, but just tiny choices in how his eyes rest, where his mouth's placed, and his physical standing all come together to give a massive amount of emotional range. Same goes for everyone in this, really. Considering Odie can't talk and John says less than a paragraph collectively in the whole runtime for this, the animators have really worked in a great range of ways to get them to emote their feelings while maintaining a distinct cartoon aesthetic. It helps as well that the script is really quite engaging and charismatic too. The pacing is pretty breakneck, getting you from set scene to set scene as quickly and tightly as possible. Honestly, this is one of the few times I think a special could have benefited from being a bit slower paced. There's no fat here, it's super lean, compacted full of jokes, and it rumbles along nicely. It follows the 3-act structure to the letter, and the dialogue is effortlessly smooth. It's fluid and genuinely entertaining. In fact, this script's so well put together that my only criticism is that I wish there'd been more of it. It doesn't do anything too complex or overly reliant on other elements to tie it together. It's about as basic a story as you can get. And because it's all been kept so simple, it means less can go wrong, and as a result it remains relatively solid right the way through to the end credits. As mentioned, it probably helps tremendously that this was penned by Jim Davis, as with it being the first totally original Garfield adaptation, there was a lot of scope for this to not quite land properly. Davis is an old hand in this game, having created Garfield back in 1978 and having written and co-written every Garfield special between 1982 and 1991. And he's still releasing daily strips to this day. He's a veritable wealth of material, spawning not just from his own work, but also having inspired multiple spin-offs from other creators, including Garfield minus Garfield, a strangely compelling parody strip which is basically old Garfield strips but with Garfield erased from every panel, and the even stranger still, Lasagna Cat, a total rabbit hole of a YouTube channel that mixes surreal abstraction and border creepypastiness that's a Halloween episode's worth of material in and of itself. But I'm getting away from the main topic here. There's one glaring reason as to why this special is so standout in terms of its looks, feel and tone, and that's because the director of this special is Phil Roman. This is the same Phil Roman who oversaw work on The Simpsons between 1992 and 1999. He helped give serious character and detail to The Critic for 2 seasons it was on the air, and he helped lift King of the Hill well above and beyond the standard gubbins of animation hell into one of the funniest sitcoms on TV. And here he is, directing Garfield's Halloween Adventure. The guy's a total legend of TV, and I can guarantee had Roman not had the helm in this in terms of directing, this special wouldn't be anywhere near as charming or delightful to sit through. The direction and art style is fairly on the minimalist side of things in this special. It all has a bit of a soft roundness to it that really helps give the special more of a cartoony feel. But they contrast that softness, particularly in the haunted house sections, by making the old man just a little bit over-detailed when compared to the rest of the cast, and by giving both him and the ghost pirates just a bit more of a jaggedy drawing style. It creates something that feels outside of this special's universe, subliminally telling the audience that these characters aren't quite right, or are even spooky, without really having to make them look spooky. That level of subtlety usually points towards a great art director at the helm, and while they more than do the job of keeping Garfield's world very much in style with the drawing style of the strips, they do their best to build when they can, which I have to say I really liked. They put as much detail in that's needed without running the risk of ostracising people by going way off base on the style that it's known for, which I really have to commend. The vocal performances here are pretty top-notch too, though this would be expected as this wasn't the first Garfield special ever, and a lot of the voice cast from the previous 3 years would return to reprise their roles throughout. Lorenzo Music is frankly the de facto Garfield to me. He captures that yawning dryness just perfectly, and to be honest, it's not surprising. The guy started voicing him in 1982, right up until his death in 2001, and even beyond that there were posthumous releases that used his voice recordings throughout the early 2000s. You'll probably also know him as the voice of Peter Venkman from The Real Ghostbusters, but to me, he'll always be Garfield. Tom Huge and Greg Berger are also great as John and Odie. Again, much like Lorenzo, they just seem to totally embrace the role. And while John doesn't really have that many appearances in this special, and Odie, well, Odie just makes noises, there's still a real attempt to emote and to try and make these characters work in those moments. C. Lindsay Workman also has to be commended here as the voice of the old man in the haunted house. He has a super bassy quality to his voice, and his dramatic booming tones really help to add gravitas to the very spooky and unsettling environment our characters find themselves in. Workman would appear in 4 Garfield specials, this would be his second appearance, but for my money, he steals most of the scenes he's in. Finally, the soundtrack, and it's awesome. The fact that the incidental music runs a theme throughout, meaning that you get this nice, neat run of different tempo, pacing, and structured variants on the same progressive chord structure, I personally really liked, though it is total earworm territory. There are musical numbers, and my god, they're fantastic, with This Is the Night being both the intro theme and a definite highlight to me. It's upbeat, a little soulful, and packed with pep. It's a total winner. Garfield's Sea Shanty and What Shall I Be are both total earworms as well that'll have you tapping along in no time. The whole thing's just utterly lovely, and I look forward every Halloween to singing along as I bury my face into the annual candy casserole. Garfield's Halloween Adventure was released on VHS in 1992 by Fox Home Entertainment. It was then later re-released on DVD as part of the Garfield Holiday Celebrations box set in 2004, alongside a Thanksgiving and a Christmas special. Since then, it's been repackaged and re-released multiple times throughout the 2000s, and at the time of writing, it's available to stream on Amazon Prime. At least, it is in the US. I can't seem to find it on the UK version of Prime. Equally, this also later received a full comic book adaptation, which I think's really neat. Plus, the comic book version has a few deleted scenes that didn't make it into the final televised version that helped to flesh out the story even more. So there's plenty of ways out there to get your fix for this one. Garfield's Halloween Adventure is just one of those specials that's great to kick off your Halloween or to pre-game to if you're hosting a Halloween marathon or an all-nighter. It's win-win, really. It's got a little bit of scares in there for the kids, the humour really appeals to all ages, and there's some sing-along moments that really help put those early orange beers to good use. It's a nice palate cleanser for any shindig where harder horror is on the menu, and being honest, it's nice to sit and watch a horror-themed special that made me feel like a kid again. I got a serious hankering to go out trick-or-treating while watching this, and while I can't say it'll suit absolutely everyone's taste, if you have kids who are planning a Halloween party, or you just want something gentle to kick off your Halloween with a bang, this is definitely the special for you.